All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of those normal reminders. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation, and you can type those in by clicking either the Q&A or the chat section in the lower portion of your control panel. Feel free to chat between yourselves as well throughout. I always love that interaction. We will be posting a recording of the webinar on our blog. The link for that will be shown at the end. And if you'd like a PDF copy of the presentation, there will be a link to download that on that same post as the recording. If your question does not get answered today, or if you think of any others, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, so what is on the agenda for today? Intentional living. This is really something that maybe you've heard kind of thrown around as a term sometimes, but do we really know what it means? And more importantly, do we know how to implement it in our own life? That is the question I hope to help with today. We will go over what intentional living is, what the benefits are to start living more intentionally, and how to hopefully start incorporating it into your life today. So let's get to the basics first. What do I mean when I say intentional living? Now, like most things, it's not a true black and white thing, right? It becomes a little more subjective on how you want to use it within your life and your circumstances. So I kind of like to combine some of the definitions that I've seen out there. So I put a few things up here. I end up with something like being mindful and purposeful in your actions, choices, and goals you set. Making deliberate choices that align with your values with the goal to remain true, obviously, to those values, right? So basically, I kind of think of it as not going through the motions day after day, right? We get stuck in that day after day monotony, if you will, too. So it's thinking about your life, how you want to live it, and then structuring your days and your actions as much as you can to get closer to that vision. Now, again, it's not an all or nothing thing, right? We're going to have actions that don't necessarily give us more purpose or fulfill our lives, right? That's life, but it's about finding the actions that we can take and incorporating those things into our habits that can give us more joy, more meaning within those days, okay? So then the question arises of, well, what are the benefits of living with intention? If you've watched our webinars on resilience, I think you can find a lot of parallels with the benefits of living with intention. Resilience is the ability to work through life and its barriers and adapt accordingly. Living with intention, in my mind, goes along with that because you're structuring your days and goals based on those lessons you've learned in life and those that have taught you what's most important to you, right? So when we think about those that live according to their values and what's most important to them, these are going to be some of the benefits they're going to see. So improved mental and emotional well-being. Intentional living promotes things like self-awareness, mindfulness, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence specifically is the ability to regulate, express, and understand our own emotions, which if you're like me, that's always in progress, right? So, but having those abilities with self-awareness, mindfulness, improving our emotional intelligence, those types of things can help reduce stress, anxiety, depression. Living with intention encourages you to prioritize yourself, your self-care, and promotes engaging in activities that are good for your mind, body, and soul. Greater resilience and adaptability. I just talked about the parallels with resilience, so this should make sense, right? Living intentionally creates a growth mindset, which I will talk a bit more here about in a minute, and the ability to adapt to changes and challenges more effectively. You can help improve your problem-solving skills and create a positive outlook that can help navigate life in general, right? The ups and the downs that come with it. And then increased happiness and fulfillment is another benefit. When you live according to your values, your passions, your goals, it makes sense that you're going to more likely experience that greater sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, happiness, right? Ideally, you'll find more joy in the activities you engage in because you're being intentional about those activities and in the people you build relationships with. And then, so speaking of relationships, living with intention typically leads to stronger relationships. If you're intentional in choosing who you surround yourself with, it's going to lead to a positive environment for you and those around you. Your relationships will ideally be more authentic and healthier. And if you have more positive people in your life because you're intentional of who you choose to spend your time with, it can also make it easier to deal with those people that you can't avoid, right? That may not be as much of a positive influence, because we know we can't always avoid those people that may not bring positivity to our life. But if we can have other people that we know are going to be around us, it can help reduce the impact of those negative relationships. So then if we kind of transition a little bit to focus more on the work side of life, when we talk about intentional living, it can help enhance productivity and focus. So again, when we're talking work, being intentional at work, if you work on focusing what is most important, you're going to be setting clear goals and priorities, right? You're going to hopefully eliminate some distractions and unnecessary commitments. This can help lead to improved productivity, efficiency, and focus. And then you'll better be able to manage your time, hopefully, and your energy, even more importantly, to achieve those goals. And again, this is not just work, this is inside and outside of work, right? And then better focus leads to better decision making. Living intentionally improves how we think about our choices and can help make more thoughtful and informed decisions that, again, are going to align with our priorities, our values, because we're stopping and thinking about it a little bit more. So this can lead to reduced indecisiveness, right? Fewer regrets in the long run. Now, again, indecisiveness, I am very guilty. Anyone else out there guilty of indecisiveness? Absolutely. But again, it's a work in progress. But if you start to base your decisions, if you think about those decisions based on your goals, based on your priorities, based on your values, it can help make those decisions easier, right? And then also on a side note, things like financial well-being can be affected by better decision making, obviously, right? This is a big deal and a big area for a lot of people. So being able to better set priorities, make smarter decisions because you're more intentional with your choices will hopefully help us get into better situations with many areas of our life, financial included. And then just personal and professional growth. Intentional living encourages the growth mindset that is all about continuous learning, self-improvement, skill development. When you're looking at your life in a way that promotes being the best version of you, it's going to provide opportunities for personal and professional growth, and that's going to help you succeed, right? If you keep growing, you are going to be more valuable to yourself and your own goals and those around you, work, whatever it may be. And then if you're setting small goals, feeling better about things, that's going to lead to increased self-confidence and self-efficacy, right? You're going to feel better about yourself. If you feel in control of your life, if you're making choices that make you feel more empowered about changing the way you feel, the way you sleep, the way you handle stress, you're going to build that self-confidence. You're going to be like my cat friend here. You're going to feel like a lion, right? You're going to feel empowered to continue to create a better future for yourself and those around you, right? So, okay, I feel like some of the things people are like, oh, that's kind of cliche, right? Like, sure, my life will be perfect if I just practice a few, intentional things. Yeah, right. And I get it. But like we say all the time here at Health Check, we are about progress, not perfection around here. It's not about solving all of life's problems. But if you can take some time to figure out those priorities, what's truly important to you, slowly start to craft your days around that, again, as much as you can, it can start to make a difference in your life when it comes to your happiness, your health, those types of things, which in the end, right, that's pretty much our ultimate goal in life, to be happy and healthy. I hope anyways. There's a quote from an author named Annie Diller that says, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. This really struck me when I saw this because it's absolutely true, right? It's obvious, but it's not something we stop to think about. Our life is made up of moments, hours, days, right? We don't spend our lives in big events. We spend our lives in these moments and days. So think about how you're spending those moments in your days. Living intentionally encourages you to live with purpose, mindfulness, integrity, focusing on the positive, hopefully leading to more meaningful and fulfilling life overall. Now, again, easier said than done, right? Can seem pretty daunting, hard to know where to start. And there's going to be some days where it's going to seem awkward, going to seem hard because you may need to make uncomfortable decisions that are different from what you've done in the past because they don't align with you and your new directions in life, right? So it's going to be a bumpy road, but what I want you to do is think about some of these action items that I'm going to talk about right now, some small steps that you can take that can help lead you in that direction of just having more intention in your life. Think about one or two things that's realistic for you, jot them down however you want to do it, and think about taking that step. So I'm going to start big picture with what you can do. So I said intentional living is making decisions based on your values, right? So it makes sense to start with figuring out what those are, what's important to you. Now, this can be really simple, but you can also do a pretty deep dive here. So it's really up to you. But values are essentially your rules for living, right? So things like honesty, integrity, respect, compassion, family, success, health, adventure. If you Google, really any Google, but James Clear, who I mentioned a few times in my webinars in the past, if you Google James Clear core values list, there's a list of like 50 values that can give you kind of examples that you can pick from based on kind of what resonates with you, what sticks out to you. So choose maybe 3 or 5 that really resonate, go from there. Now, I've done this in sessions before or classes that I've taken, and I can tell you that it can take some time to figure out your very top ones, right? So a couple tips to think about is think about your best days when you've had SpongeBob's the best day ever, right? What happened to make you feel that way? Was it a big success in something? Was it when you were around your family? Think about your emotions. Oh, Brene Brown. Sorry, I just saw that note. Yes, core value. All of those positive people out there. Lots of options for core value lists. Absolutely. Whatever works for you. Also think about your emotions. Did you get angry when you read an article about something unjust? What do you wish you had more of in your life? What values do fictional or non-fictional characters or people possess that you admire or resonate with you in something you've read, something you've watched? There are lots of ways to think about your values. So again, do some experimenting, see what you come up with. Has anyone done an exercise like this? I know the person that mentioned Brene Brown, obviously you've seen that before. Does anyone know some of their top values and want to share? I'd love it if people would share some examples just to give other people some ideas. Again, I said a couple, but it really depends on you. So feel free to throw those in the chat. Yep, gratitude, big one. Faith, family, love it. It's all about thinking about what makes you fulfilled, right? Honesty, perfect. Okay, so when you have some of those examples on your top list, I want you to think, then we're going to stop and we're going to think about what you do currently, right? What are your groups are you involved in? What tasks do you do daily? What goals do you maybe already have, etc.? And then ask yourself, do those current actions align with what I'd like to be with those values? Now, again, I'm going to keep going back to this. It's not about restructuring our whole life, okay? It's about looking at what you're doing now, setting some goals based around doing more things that are guided by those values. So let's say, health, physical health is a really important part of your life and you value it. Look at your days, think about what you're doing currently that is getting you either closer or further away from that value. And then what could you be doing instead? How about family? Family I saw on there too. Are your current habits leading you towards a great relationship with your family or away from it? You know, and that kind of brings me to my next point. Self-awareness is a big key to living intentionally. If you can't look at yourself honestly, see your strengths, which is super important, and also your weaknesses, right? It's going to be hard to kind of grow and change. So again, look at your days, examine them truthfully with yourself, and see what 1 or 2 steps you want to take to start heading in the direction of being happier overall. But I like all the F's there with that one. Yeah, make it fun, right? With those values. But again, we want to start moving in a direction that we are living those values as much as possible. So one way to do that, to kind of start that motion, is setting SMART goals, right? You need to give yourself a roadmap of where you want to be. So it's much easier to be specific with how you're setting those goals to know if you're going in the right direction. We do have a webinar on SMART goals from a couple months ago, so check that out. But at a high level, SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. There's a few variations in there, but these are the most used ones. So when you're looking at setting a goal, use all these letters to structure it. So let's say you want to spend more time with your family because that was the value you choose. Okay, let's look at next week. Maybe you say, Thursdays after supper, we will have a family game night. Seems simple, right? But you are specific what you wanted to do, the game night with your family. You can measure your success by keeping track of how many weeks you did it. You were able to make that happen. And it doesn't always have to be Thursday. We can be flexible with those goals. But if you have a specific night that you know works best, choose that. Hopefully you were thoughtful on that schedule so it's reasonable to achieve, right? It's relevant as well. And because you're looking at your family value to improve, right? And there's time attributed to it. SMART goals don't have to be super long. They just need to have those specific elements so that you can know if you're achieving them or not. And then we need to revisit them, right? Revisit our goals regularly to either progress to the next one if you're feeling good about that one, or adapting that goal, changing that goal, updating it if it's not working. This is how we keep the momentum going in our lives, paying attention to what we're doing, again, being intentional, right? And evaluating progress. This is what intentional living is, being in the moment with our lives and paying attention. Someone made a good point too with self-awareness, having someone that you trust that can help you look at your strengths and different things, right? That can be honest with you as far as the good and the bad. So that's a really good point that I wanted to come back to. Again, making sure it's someone that you trust, that you won't get defensive, you know, if they tell you, and you have to go into it with an open mindset. But yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Another thing before we move on to the next slide. So some people love to visually see goals, right? So one option that I'm going to throw out there is vision board, goal journal, something like that. Visualize your ideal life, create that board, create that journal to represent those goals and dreams. And you can display it somewhere that's visible to you or accessible to you to help remind you of those goals, to help you stay motivated. Now, I feel like vision boards were a big thing a few years ago, but I think we should bring it back because I love the idea, because dreaming matters. Right? We need to have dreams so we can achieve those dreams. All right, intentional living also will lead to reprioritizing, hopefully, actually, right? Intentional living requires you to prioritize what truly matters to you, like we've been talking about. So this may involve limiting distractions, simplifying your life, right? It could be letting go of activities, relationships, commitments that don't align with those values or contribute to your goals, your happiness, whatever it is. Now, coming back to it again, you may not be able to just say no to everything that doesn't align with exactly what you want, right? But again, it's about looking more deeply at maybe why you're doing certain things, and then seeing if there's maybe another path that makes more sense to you. okay? Now, I've mentioned a couple times that living with intention includes being mindful. So it makes sense that a tip to help live intentionally is practicing mindfulness as a regular routine. Now, there's lots of ways to practice mindfulness. So things like meditation, deep breathing, yoga, if you want to get some physical part of it in there too, are great options to help you get in the moment. That's the purpose of mindfulness, because when we are in the moment, when we're not distracted by all of those other thoughts, those things around us, it's easier to focus on us, right? And what matters to us, what we can do to create our own positivity. And then self-care can go hand in hand with all of these things too, right? No matter what your core values are for you, taking care of yourself is going to give you a better ability to live those values in your day-to-day, right? Taking time to focus on your mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever area you want to work on, those areas will benefit you and give you more energy to take on those days. And then a big part, moving down, big part of self-care is creating those healthy habits for yourself, right? We need to figure out what self-care is, and that's taking care of yourself in multiple ways. So eating well, prioritizing sleep, getting movement in your day, stress management techniques that you put into place, again, are all going to fuel you the right way and get you going in that right direction of living for you, your loved ones, creating that positive life. Once again, not going to happen overnight, right? But these can be some of those SMART goals that we talked about, small changes here and there to help you get in a better mindset to be able to figure out how you can be more intentional in your life. Another way to get on that path is seeking growth and learning opportunities. I said growth mindset a couple times. So what do I mean by that? Growth mindset is the belief that you can develop skills, grow in your knowledge, and improve through effort in whatever you're striving for. So this is the opposite of a fixed mindset. People that have a fixed mindset view it as people are basically born with the abilities that they have, and most things are not changeable, right? If you can see that really, in majority of cases, the reality is that people can improve, they can develop new skills, then you can start to set intentional goals around some skill or learning that you may want to develop that would get you closer to those values that are so important to you. Stepping out of your comfort zone to push yourself is a great way to be intentional, because you're going to feel that discomfort, right? You're going to learn from that discomfort and you're going to grow as a person. Not easy, but getting out of that comfort zone. There's a reason why people say that. Whether or not you get to the end goal you're looking for, you're going to benefit from creating a challenge for yourself that can help show you who you are and what you're capable of, really. And then with growing, sometimes we have growing pains, right? So another skill of living intentionally and being present in your life is taking responsibility for your actions. We all make mistakes, right? They are a part of life, and they're typically a great learning experience. If you embrace your mistakes and failures, learn from them, make adjustments to your goals and actions, you're going to be in a better place in the long run, even by having made that mistake. If we don't have adversity in our lives from time to time, it's really hard to grow. So just know that it's okay to trip. The key is looking at that rock that you fell over, what you did wrong that made you fall, and what you can do next time to hop over that next rock, right? So that for an analogy for you. I came up with that all by myself. So growth mindset, repeat the definition of growth mindset, the belief that you can develop skills, grow in your knowledge, and improve through effort in whatever goal you have, whatever you're striving for. Hopefully that's what you meant by that definition. All right, next tip is reflect. So I kind of touched on this already, right? We talked about SMART goals, being able to track and measure things. So a lot of people will set great goals, but they never revisit them to see how they're doing. So being intentional means knowing where you're heading and continuing to recalibrate the course as needed, right? To be sure you are still going in the direction you want to go. Because sometimes our goals change. I think that's important to understand too, kind of a side note here. We're not the same person that we may have been 5 or 10 years ago when the last time you looked at your goals or your values were. I mean, a lot of times values are going to be similar, but specific goals to get to those values are going to change. So don't be afraid to change course throughout your year, week, life, whatever it may be. And then a really good way to stop and reflect on things, which a lot of you already said, is focus on gratitude and positivity, right? If you focus on the things that are going well in your life, intentionally stop to focus on them, your brain starts to literally change and notice more of those good things. So again, setting a goal each day or a couple days, whatever is realistic for you, to stop and be intentional specifically with looking at the positives you see around you can be a game changer when it comes to that overall happiness level. And, if you want to do a journal, electronic journal, paper journal, or simply stopping to think about things when you're in the car, on your commute, when you're in the shower in the mornings, you can do that too. There's no wrong way to practice gratitude. But the advantage of documenting your gratitude is that you can look back at it, maybe when you're having a rough day, to remind you of the good things you have in your life, the people, the nature, the accomplishments. Tiny wins can remind you that there are good things all around us, right? Small things are a lot of times the most important things. Okay, so let's take a second here to summarize. Every day is an opportunity to live with intention. Being intentional is looking at those daily actions and working to make more and more of those actions steps closer to your best life, I like to say, right? Living with how you feel you should live. Now, again, living intentionally is a continuous process. It doesn't end after you set a few goals to spend more time with family or to volunteer once a month, whatever it may be. It's about learning about yourself, what makes you tick, what gives you joy in life, and then structuring your days around that joy and what makes you happy, trying to get more of that, right? You're not always going to have great days. I think that's important too, right? We know that there's going to be things that come up. You're not always going to take actions that are going to provide joy. Sometimes you have to do things because you have to do them. That's life. Not everything's going to fill you with joy, but if you can find more things to intentionally place in your life that's going to help you, then you're headed in the right direction. And this requires patience, adaptation, resilience, which you can learn along the way too. That's that growth mindset. You can learn these skills to focus on the positive more, to gain resilience. So start with one small step. As you're making more and more intentional choices that align with your goals, your values, your priorities, you can and will live a life that's just a little bit more fulfilling, purposeful, meaningful, happy, right? All right. I will open it up for questions here in a second, but I just want to talk about the upcoming webinars. May is brain power. So our brains can handle a workout just like our bodies can too. So we're going to talk about some tips to keep that mind in shape. And then eating well on the go, that's a big one. We get a lot of questions about that on coaching calls. So we'll talk about some different strategies for eating well when you're traveling and all that good stuff. If you do have lifestyle rewards and you do have to answer questions, this is the questions. These are the questions that are going to pop up. You can screenshot this if you want. Otherwise, it will be on the blog post that you can download the slides on as well. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. And then we are on social media. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got all of the fun social media places, or most of them anyways. And then the webinars, the past webinars, this recording will be posted within the next day or so, 24 hours. Usually they're really good about getting it up. So that will be on the blog here with the website there. You can register for upcoming webinars on there as well. And then if you want to chat with the coach about this or any other areas of your health, give us a call. shoot us an email. More than happy to chat about anything that's going to help make you happier and healthier, how we can help keep you accountable to those goals that you're going to set by being intentional.